Yo, what up, Mystery? Welcome to the Enonologs. I am just driving around here and I wanted to get one of these done, and having the family and all that stuff, sometimes it's hard for me to get away, but I was able to go do some running around, so I figured this would be a perfect time to sit here and bullshit with y'all. So if you don't know what the Enonologs is, it's a little series I'm doing for the As We Venture Forth page. And it's basically just, it's not like a story of my life per se, but definitely like, oh shit. Not a story of my life, but basically it is the story of like me musically. So, it will start off, when I was a little kid, before I was even rapping and stuff like that. Oh shit. You'll get some freshness like that. But, other than that, I just really wanted to, I have like a lot of stories that, I probably told 1,000 times to my friends and shit like that, but I just thought I had a really interesting, come up, and I don't get to interact with you guys a lot, so I think I might do some of these live, or I might just start doing lives myself in general, but definitely wanted to get you guys some content and just, maybe give you a little background of certain stuff. If you follow Mystery Midnight Sun Music, now As We Venture Forth, then you probably know kind of a few of the stories, and you might know some stuff, but this will be a nice thing to get like deep dives in and shit like that, and behind the scenes stuff to maybe you guys didn't know, like how the interactions with people I've met, or how events went and shit like that. So yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. Really appreciate you checking this out. Go like all the pages, Mystery on Facebook. Go follow us on all the fucking, streaming platforms and everything like that. I use Spotify the most myself, but I mean, whatever you got, we're on it. So facebook.com/anonymous, facebook.com/as we venture forth. I'll put all the links and shit. I always wanted to say that. I'll have the links in the comments below. Or whatever. So in any case, though, go follow us, go check it out. We're doing a lot of stuff right now, and I'm just really happy that I'm actually getting to do this, because I've had this idea to do it for a while, but I was like, I don't really know, I don't know, as much as it's easy as to be on stage, sometimes when I get on the camera and I'm just freestyling, it's like it could be intimidating. But in any case, sorry for my camera here. Like I said, I'm driving. And in any case, though, I guess the best place to start would probably just be, how I even got into music, and how I even wanted to start pursuing rap, and how I got into it and shit. So I would say, grew up in Kenai, Alaska. It's on the peninsula. And there wasn't, anything that necessarily like one big event that just drew me in. I think it was just like a whole bunch of things from my upbringing that I was dug it out. My parents, none of them played instruments or were like recording artists or anything crazy like that. They just, same old type of people. Just love my fucking parents, but they weren't musical themselves, but that's where I got a lot of my musical taste, was from them. My mom was more of like a hippie. She more kind of like, and that's the other thing, is between my parents, the wide range of music is crazy. It wasn't like I just had like country parents, or they only liked hard rock or anything. It was like a very much of a mix. And just from them, because they were Advent concert goers when they were, younger and everything like that. And just being around them when I was a little ass kid, and just, my parents used to have the old, I remember when I was like a little ass kid, they used to have like those fucking like receiver towers, that had like all the different fucking amps and shit on there, and like the big ass fucking headphones that stuck out to here. And they had a vinyl record player. My mom had mad vinyls, but like it wasn't like an old school, like they weren't, by the time I got there, they had like plenty of tapes. My mom used to have like a fucking huge thing of cassette tapes. Man, my parents used to listen to all kinds of shit. My mom loved like everything from like Fleetwood Mac to like Madonna. She loved Michael Jackson. She loved fucking all that shit, the Mamas and the Papas, the Zombies. Fuck, man. She like, I mean, but like I said, she liked Kiss and shit like that. She used to, man, you know, all the way up to like Neil Diamond and random crazy shit like that. So my dad was more of the rock guy, but he liked, you know, he liked older stuff. He would, you know, anything ranging from like Zeppelin to fucking, fuck, man. I guess what I have to say my dad's favorite shit would be like, I don't know. Like, I could definitely guess his favorite radio station, but like to pinpoint exactly who my dad like really fucked with like that. And my parents did have a lot of the same music taste, but there was certain shit that my mom would listen to and my dad would listen to. Like my dad and my mom both loved the fucking Doors like as fuck. They loved that shit. I didn't really get into deep to that until way later, but I, you know, all that, you know, in that pocket. So they were very musical as far as they had like a wide range of shit, and I was constantly hearing music and shit like that, but it wasn't like my dad knew how to play guitar or anything crazy like that. And they used to I mean, fuck, there was always music playing, either it was in the fucking house or if we were driving somewhere. Like I said, my mom used to bring the fucking box of fucking cassette tapes with her everywhere they went until they got stolen from us when our vehicle got stolen later on. But I guess we'll get down to that. So yeah, I never really, you know, even like in music, the thing with like Alaska, and I say this all the time with like football and like music specifically, is that we don't have like a fucking football team. There's not like an Alaskan sound or nothing like that yet, you know, so that's what I'm trying to do, is make it where you hear some shit from Alaska and you're like, oh, that's a AK shit. But there's no like sound like that, you know. It wasn't like Bay Area where like you would, you know, get raised up on some certain shit, you know, a lot of funk and stuff back in. It wasn't like the boonies of like the East Coast or nothing like that. I wasn't really country heavy or nothing. So I think that kind of came in hand with like all the different musical taste, because we're just like, I know a lot of places like we're a melting pot and shit, but like no, like in Alaska you really do have a lot of people from all over the world there, and since there isn't our own necessarily music culture and sound, it's like we're kind of picking at everything and stuff. So I would definitely say, man, yeah, so my parents always pressed the music on us hard, you know. Even early on they always wanted me to do shit musically. But they just wanted me to do shit that like they knew that I would be happy doing, and they had, you know, they were great parents. They're always like, basically you could do whatever the fuck you wanted, you know. So I never had any limit on this shit. But I remember my parents like tried to get me into band back in the day, and like I used to be able to play alto sax, and I think everyone starts off on that little fucking flute. I think they call it a recorder, but I never got it. But in any case, yeah, so they always like wanted me to do shit, not necessarily music, but just anything that I was really into and creative. And they always like, you know, really upped the fact that they wanted me to have like a dream and shit like that, you know, don't get caught up into corporate America and all this bullshit. So it was really kind of freeing. Now, as far as like influences, like when I first start, like, okay, what am I, you know, how am I getting into music and shit? I would probably say, well, the first thing I always attribute it to, the first thing that I could really say that I was like, I think that was the turn, was, and I might have the timeline a little fucked up, like I said, like I'm just freestyling here, so if I jump back and forth, like, do excuse me and everything like that, I'm not trying to. One of the couple of first instances where I really start getting into shit like that, where I was like getting creative, like my creative, you know, because I already had the background of like being in a creative area. My parents, you know, my mom was an artist and shit like that, and my dad was not just a, you know, he was a welder back in the day, but he had a very open mind. Like I said, I think that's why him and my mom really clicked, because it was like, she was like open and just, you know, way more hippie-ish than he was, but he was just loved her to death, and they were just their ride or die. So I think that's really kind of what got them, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but in any case, the first couple of things I think really attributed it to like anything me getting into music was the first time I ever had to like memorize some shit. And the only reason I ever think back to this is because we had this fucking school assignment that you had to like memorize a fucking poem. And they gave you the poem like at the beginning of the week, and by the next Monday they wanted you to be able to just like say the poem. It was literally like you had to go into find a book, find a poem that you were fucking with, and memorize it so you could like, you know, say it in front of the class, and they let you pick whatever the fuck. But I remember I totally fucked it off. Like, not like fucked it off where I didn't give a shit about it, but I just was like, oh yeah, like I'm a horrible procrastinator. So when the day, it was like the weekend, and my mom was like, so did you memorize that thing? And I was like, yeah. She's like, let me hear it. And I didn't have shit. I was like, look, let me tell you for real, I did not do it. I didn't do it. So my mom got heated, and I'm sure my dad was fucking pissed off at it too, because he was always on my ass about getting my work done. But my mom was like, you're not getting out of this. You're not just gonna show up and flail. Like, you're about to memorize this shit. Like, and I want it done right fucking now type shit. So I was like, all right. So I ended up having to spend like the rest of the Sunday night, when I was like, fuck, this had to be, I was young. It was earlier than 10. I'm not exactly sure exactly what age, but I was definitely earlier than 10. I could have been like 8, maybe. I don't think 7, maybe 7. I don't know. Anywhere younger than 10 that's not fucking like 5. Or 6. It had to have been from like 7 to 8. I don't know why I'm tripping about that. In any case, I ended up having to like read this fucking thing and memorize it. It wasn't very long, but I remember it was like crunch time. And I remember like going off the first line and just memorizing it, and I'll put the book down and like try to say it, and then I'll look at it, memorize, like read it again if I fucked it up, memorize it, say it a couple times without looking at the book, bring it back up and try to build off that. And the funny thing about that is that's actually how I write now. Like, that's actually how I write lyrics. Like, when I do a verse, by the time I get to the end of the verse, like after I'm writing it down, by the time I get to the end, I usually have that motherfucker memorized, because it's literally like I write a line, I'll fucking listen to it, I'll spit the line, make sure it fits. I basically just like plug away at it line by line. Obviously if I have like a good bar in my head or something like that, or like a, you know, like maybe like a 4-bar set of some punchlines and shit that I'm like really fucking with, then I'll have shit like that and like spurts. But I definitely write it, and by the time I'm there at the end, I have it all memorized usually. And I think a lot of that had to do from that shit. That's why I always attributed it to it, because it was literally like going down by down. And I had it down pretty fucking quick. And I was so happy that I got it down. And my mom was always like, you know, your moms are fucking kid biased, no whatever. You could take a shit and your parents could be like, oh my God, the way my kid takes shits, you know, like, it was like, I remember, I still kind of can remember that memory of me being like, holy shit, like, I did that. Like, that, I was able to do it. Like, it was like, even though I'd fucked it off, be it the fact that I was able to get it done in one night and, like, actually memorize it, I was like, and come to find out that, like, I had my shit on lock within, like, one night. I was like, and then I came out to the next day, and I was all worried about it. Like, if I fuck one line up, they're gonna, like, fucking give me a bad grade and all this shit. And I was, like, one of the few people that actually knew their shit without having to look. You know, we had, like, hella kids, like, you know, and maybe they knew their shit, but they weren't, like, good in front of crowds and shit. And I didn't give a fuck, because I was a show-off as a little-ass kid. So I was, like, I was always good with the crowd shit. I never had a problem with, like, speaking in public or nothing like that. So I killed that poem shit though, and to this day I always think back to that, because I'm like, damn, that's kind of crazy. That's how I write now, you know, because if I don't like the line, I won't go to the next line until I'm happy with that line. I might make like adjustments and shit like that, and if I do, there are times where I'm like, fuck it, this whole section's coming out or something crazy, but most of the time that's how I do it. So there was that time, and now that wasn't really getting me into music, but I did. And I don't even think I was really fucking with the poem. I wasn't really like, I think I found a hella easy one, and I was like, I'm just gonna memorize this shit and I'm gonna fucking go do work, you know? But so I wasn't into like I wasn't into writing shit yet, so I'll get into that later, but I wasn't there yet, but I was really happy with the poem thing. As far as music and like how I really came into music was really just fucking listening to the radio. Like a lot of it was just me listening to the radio, and like me and my cousin Cheyenne and my fucking cousin Tyler and shit like that. Like I remember listening to the radio, and I remember my cousin Tyler's a big factor in all this. He'll hear about him a lot of time. If you hear me refer to T Beezy, that's because that was going to be his DJ name later on and stuff. So if you ever hear me say T Beezy or Tyler, like that's my cousin Tyler that I grew up with. And a lot of the early shit, like he was like the best, like the coolest person in my fucking head. So for like a lot of the early shit, I just was trying to do stuff that I was like, yo, like if Tyler's doing it, I'm doing it. He was like my big brother. I'm an only child. He was like my big brother, and but he was my cousin, and he wasn't even really my cousin. It was like that type of thing where you're like, my parents moved from the lower 48 to Alaska with their grandparents, so it was like I've always known them since I was fucking born. Like they were at the fucking hospital when I was born type shit. You know, everyone's got those kind of family members that aren't like family blood or whatever the fuck. But anyway, I remember Tyler was like the first one that I was even really like, he listened to music. And I think he was the first one that ever showed me like, not like music, like this is what music is. Cause I already knew what music was, but I never even had my own, this is before I had my own taste in music. Like before I was even like, before I even list, like, you know, I didn't know what the fuck, you know, I didn't know shit about nothing. I knew songs, and there were songs that like my parents listened to, but I couldn't, you know what, I did know about Madonna and shit like that. I would say a lot like the Jackson 5, like I did know a lot of people and their songs, but like I never had my own. It was just what my mom and my dad were listening to, so I couldn't really necessarily say like I was, you know, I would steal the music and shit, but I was just getting into it. I never had my own shit. Everything I listened to up to this certain point was like everything repeats shit that my parents heard. You know, it wasn't anything. I wasn't like venturing out finding my own shit. But I remember my cousin Tyler used to do two things with like, I think the music video shit came later, because he used to record music videos on cassettes like MTV back in the day, so you could go back and watch them and shit. But he was the first one that ever came up to me and was like, yo, like show me songs and shit. And he would fucking just play the radio and record it on the cassette and then go back, so that way you had the songs on tape and shit like that. So he was really the first one doing it, and that's when I started kind of getting into music. But I think the thing, and this is like another thing I attribute everything to, I think one of the biggest things that ever got me into music, and I think the thing that actually get me into music, where I was like really fucking with it and having my own style and trying to find new shit, was wrestling, like WWF wrestling. That had a huge fucking part in my music taste and shit, because I would literally just watch the intro, like I would watch the fucking entrance music to all the wrestlers, and some of the wrestlers had like Hulk Hogan had the fucking the Real American song, and fucking later on they had like, you know, Limp Bizkit for fucking like the Undertaker and shit like that. And then I think the Games was done by goddamn, I always forget that. Is it Radiohead? I think that was who it was. I think it was Radiohead that did the Games, or he still does the Games. I don't even know. But in any case, wrestling was the first shit that I was ever like watching something and wanted to get it, like musically, like audio. And I remember they came out with like the wrestling intro music. And like, I remember when I was really into wrestling, like a fucking kid, like 9 to 11 years old, like getting that like CD and like playing it. So I would like walk from one room into the other playing the music like I was a fucking Stone Cold or something like that. Had all this shit, and even had like a rock song, or not like a rock song, but The Rock. He had his intro music, but he also had like a rap on there that he did that was called Pie, and it was really fucking funny. It was like this whole gimmick that they were doing, but he's basically just talking about pussy. But I remember I was like, I didn't even get that we was talking about pussy for like ever. I was like, okay. And in any case, I remember just really watching that shit. And my parents at this point had probably gotten me a couple of CDs. I remember the first CD I ever like obtained, like the first CD I ever actually got, was Fresh Prince, Will Smith, Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff. And I listened to it, but I think I didn't click. It wasn't like I had found the Fresh Prince and I fucking was like in love with hip hop. I wish kind of, but it wasn't like that. It was like I had fucked with it, and I guess I was just more happy because I had like this ghetto little, like, it was funny because like we're like in the early 90s, CD players were like a normal thing now. So you were starting to be able to get like shitty CD players. You know what I'm saying? Like you could get a little boombox that had a CD player on it, and my parents just gave it to me. It wasn't like, oh, we bought you nothing. It was like some throwaway shit. So you could still get CD players, but the CDs were kind of more harder of a pain in the ass to get. So I had like this little radio boombox and shit that I would play my fucking wrestling music to, so I could come out and fucking, you know, wrestling. Whenever I would go over to my cousin Cheyenne's and Tyler's, like we would fucking play the wrestling shit so we could go and like wrestle on the trampoline, like I'm sure hella fucking fools did. But in any case, I guess the first, my parents had got me the fucking DJ Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince album, and I still hadn't made like the click. Like I still hadn't made the click where it was like I am watching shit and doing stuff. You know what I'm saying? It was like I just was doing it. Like I just was listening to the wrestling stuff. I hadn't got a grasp for music yet. I think one of the first things that ever really, and this is why I brought up wrestling, because I think one of the first times that I ever watched something and I was like trying to like, and like I said, I might have the timeline fucked up, so, but wrestling used to always do like promo, and I remember the first time I ever heard Linkin Park or ever seen Linkin Park was when they were first releasing Hybrid Theory, and what I don't know what the real song name is, but the One Step Closer song that they did, that was like their first big fucking hit. I remember that was on like the commercials for fucking wrestling, and wrestling had a couple of songs. They would do that. I seen Linkin Park on there for the first time, and I remember seeing like Mike Shinoda's like Red Hair and shit like that for the first time, and I was kind of like, oh fuck. But at this point, I think I was already I was just now getting into it. But I remember visually Linkin Park was like the first people that I seen, and I was like, holy fuck, like I like that. I've never heard anyone else like that or like offer that to me, and I really like that. And it was only like a clip of the music video, so I was always like longing to hear like the rest of the song and shit like that. So about that time, I had actually start getting into like music, and I actually start I start recording this stuff on the radio myself after that. After I was like actually getting, because there was another wrestling promo video. They had a couple of like, that was the thing, was like the WrestleMania promos would always have like a big song at the time. So at first I was becoming familiar with songs just based like through wrestling and shit. And I think I eventually heard that Linkin Park song through Tyler. Tyler had got it, and I was like, oh fuck, like I've been wanting to hear this. I only see like the little clip on TV. I never had my, like I could never have bought my own CDs or nothing. I was like fucking 9 or something like that. So, and my parents weren't into the spot yet where I wasn't really invested enough yet where I was like, buy me some music when I was like still fucking with toys and shit, or like a fucking Nintendo game or something like that. So it wasn't like, if I had a chance to have my parents spend money on me, it wasn't going to be for no CD or nothing like that. Pulling over to my house here. I've actually just been circling the fucking block because I've gotten into the zone here. In any case, I fucking, I would say wrestling had a lot to attribute to it. And then, and I only bring the poem thing up way back only because it'll kind of make sense later on when I get into poetry and what shit like that. But that was like my first taste. So at this point, when I was a younger age, had musical fucking background as far as like my parents listened to a lot of music. I start slowly finding my own music, but I wasn't able to really obtain it unless I put it on it. I did have my parents buy me blank cassettes because you could like some of them you could like re-record over a couple of times. So I would have them buy me the blank cassette so I could fucking get the music from the radio and shit. But even at that point, me and my cousin Cheyenne would like start like listening to music, but a lot of the time we were just listening to like songs that were from wrestling, or we were just using the songs for our own like wrestling music and shit. But there was certain songs that had like came out that like were funny. Like I remember like The I'm blue, da ba dee da ba da. Like that song, I remember I was a little ass kid. I would listen to that. I remember that Barbie Girl song and shit by Aqua and shit like that we would listen to, like just from fucking catching off the radio. But old like ballads and shit like that. Like I remember we listening to a lot of music. Oh, that's another one that came from wrestling was Creed. I remember Creed and like Puddle of Mud. Yeah, there's a couple of them. Creed, Puddle of Mud, all been used for like wrestling promo at some point or something like that, or an intro. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna probably just edit this out. I'm gonna cut it, but I'm gonna go open my gate really quick for my house real quick. One second. You know, I was thinking this is actually a perfect fucking thing for me to do, because anyone that knows me knows I can't ever shut the fuck up. So it's gonna be nice to be able to just rant and ramble, and anyone that wants to hear it could be able to hear it, and I'm not forcing it upon anyone. So in any case, because I'm probably gonna wrap it up here soon, I got some other shit, but I'll kind of leave at least on a good mark. So I remember at this point I had started listening to music, but again, even since I had the cassettes, I never really had a Walkman or anything yet, and like I didn't really have any reason to just purely listen to music, you know. And at this point though I was listening to the radio enough where it was like listening to music my parents didn't necessarily listen to and shit like that. Like they were starting to ask me like, who the fuck is this, or what is this, you know, shit like that. But my parents were fresh as fuck, and they would always just like, they were always interested into what the stuff I was interested in. Like if I was like a new game came out, like I remember when Pokemon came out back in the day, my parents just went full bore, and they were just like, oh, I know the Pikachu, like all the names and shit like that. Like there weren't no Pokemon fucking parents, you know what I'm saying? Like they were like checking fools, like that's not how you say it. You know, that type of shit. So I had at this point gotten into you know, music. That's really the beginning of like how I got into like music in general. I guess the next place I would take you guys would be later on down the road in my life, when like I actually start getting into like poetry and writing and shit like that. So I think we could stop it right there. But yeah, up to that point, like basically I've just, you know, little stuff from my childhood just kind of built me up to where I would really start fucking with music like that. Wrestling was like a big thing because visually I could see it, and because the wrestling promos weren't like music videos, they were promo for like the next event, but like visually seeing it and like how they were like, it was the first time I was understanding that like you could put like visuals to like music and have it become like even more powerful and shit like that, you know. Like they would have the drops at the certain part, like, or like the upbeat would come when someone slams someone on the mat and shit, you know. So like it was the first time I was really realizing like, holy shit, like this music and the visuals are like intertwining and giving me this fucking feeling that not necessarily, like I didn't have MTV, we had 4 channels and shit, and so I never even really had seen that wasn't even a real major concept yet for me. But listening to music was, but I could feel that music, but like I was really only listening because like my cousins and shit, and this is what we were listening to, you know. But it wasn't ever like until I started watching wrestling and I was like, wow, the way he came out, like you could feel it, you know, like when the fucking like when Roland would come on from fucking Limp Bizkit and you see the Undertaker come down on his bike and shit like that, you could feel the excitement. You're like, oh fuck, man, that's so fucking sick. You know, or like the Kane music, even though it's not like a song from the radio, the Kane music like would start, he would like drop his hands and the fucking flames would come up like right at the perfect time of the song and shit, and he just looked so sinister. I remember Kane was my fucking favorite, so it was cool seeing shit like that. So that's how I really got into music like at all, was just from like wrestling, listening to shit on the radio and shit, having my parents really put it on me to listen to music. They would always like set me up those headphones and shit. So I guess the next step is really just getting into like how I got into writing and how I came into like wanting to do like actual music and shit. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Like I said, I'll put all the links and shit in the bottom and all that crazy shit. I'm gonna try to pump these out as much as I can. I would like to not be in my work shit when I do this shit, so I'll try to pump them up as often as I can. To be on the lookout, go follow all the As We Venture Forth stuff, all the Midnight Sun Music stuff, Mystery, Yami Jamie, Dubtown Choppers, like, you know what it is. Maybe you don't know what it is, but now you do now. But yeah, come follow us and shit, man. I'm really excited for this, and we'll get some lives in and get some more interacting, and this will at least be content. New music in the chamber. So much crazy music in the chamber, like ready to release. Like, we already got tracks all mastered out, ready to go out. So, and the Midnight Sun Music Shop's coming. All kinds of crazy shit. I won't dilute this with all kinds of promo and shit. You can just go look at the comments and shit like that, or the fucking description, whatever the fuck it is. So, yeah, man, mystery in this bitch. Really appreciate y'all. Can't wait to fucking let you know this has been the Enonologs, episode 1. So, you know what it is. Take it easy, man.